through it. But first I want to ask, how many of you guys actually use AIMM, or have used it before? I know Jeff has, because he taught me how to use it, so. Anyone else? Is anybody else, okay, anybody even like download the program and looked into it at all? Yeah, and what do you think? Is it kind of just not practical, or
It's gonna be more of a hassle.
hassle?
I don't feel they'll look sensors accurate enough, so.
Right, yeah.
Why not?
And that's the biggest weakness for this in Saskatchewan, is that the only weather station we can generate information from is at CSADC. So that's been something we've been looking into trying to fix, but we haven't made much progress yet. But to get around that, you can also input your own manual readings, which I'll show you later. So anyway, program pretty good up there. So I'm gonna just kind of go through it step by step. I also want to mention too that in the irrigation scheduling manual on page 17, if you guys have a copy of that, if you don't pick one up at the back of the table, you have a kind of a step-by-step process on how to use the very basics of this program. So as you can see, there's a lot of different inputs that you can put in, but they aren't all necessary in order to generate the crop water use graph. So I'm going to just talk about how to get your crop water use graph for your crop, and then everything else is kind of extra, more for just reference purposes and optional. So the very first thing you do, I'm going to start a new field here, is you have to start a new field. So first you can pick whatever field you have, and then you have to make a sample site for that field. So this confuses some people, is they make a new field and they wonder why they can't enter any information. That's because some people like to have more than one sample site in a particular field. If it's a very variable field, you might want to be looking at 2 or 3 different areas throughout the growing season. If it's a high value crop, like a horticulture crop, then you're going to want to take a closer look at individual locations on that field. So we'll just do one sample site for demonstration purposes here. So the very first tab here that we're on is the field tab. The only thing you really need to put in this tab is the crop type, because that's going to give you the coefficient for the evapotranspiration rate or crop water use. So for this, we'll use canola, and then you're going to do the planting date, which is also important. And there should be a calendar that pops up. Here we go. For this, we'll use 2018. So yeah, so that's all you really need to worry about for this first tab. Everything else is just for reference. So if you want to use AIMM to completely record all your inputs and information, it can do that if you wanted to do that, but you don't need it. Another important thing that I should mention is this app can crash once in a while. It's very important that you save after everything you do to avoid a lot of frustration and banging your head against the table. Okay, next tab is inputs. So this tab actually is complete for reference and can be ignored. So yeah, then you move on to the system tab, and then this one you do need to select your system. So this is gonna, like Evan showed this presentation, every system has a different efficiency for the amount of water the irrigation system puts on. So I think for low pressure it was about 82% efficiency, and that's gonna factor that into the equation. Yeah, 82%, so make sure you save that, and then that's all you need for that tab. Pump is for reference as well, completely optional and won't impact the graph that's going to be generated at the end of this. For the sample site, so you do put in some soil texture information for this. It's obviously very important for scheduling, as Evan mentioned. What we usually do is we do 3 depths, 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, or 30 centimeters, 60 centimeters, and 90 centimeters. And then you want to go take a look at your soil type, and you can either get that information from your certification documents that you would have got during that process, or you can use the hand field texture method, which is also described in a flow chart in the irrigation scheduling manual. So for this field, say it's loam, first foot, sand for the bottom 2 feet. So after you've done that, this should all be auto-populated for 50% moisture depletion. If you want to keep it above 50%, you can manually put that. Sometimes people like to have it at 60% to prevent your available moisture from ever getting to the point where you're going to see yield reduction. So we usually keep it at 50% though. Then you push that arrow at the bottom, and it gives you total available moisture and also the allowable depletion in millimeters. And you want to save that. Move on to the next tab. Okay, the moisture tab is also a tab where you need to put in some information. So you don't need to be checking your soil moisture often, but it's very important you do at the start of the season so you get a baseline to where your soil moisture is at. So this crop was seeded on May 15th, so maybe we'll say that we checked the soil right the day before that. So this, there's many different ways to get the available moisture in your soil. You can use some of the technology that Gary talked about, or some of the newer technology that Evan will be talking about later. But if you don't have any of that technology, you can use the hand feel method, which is what we commonly use. All you need for that is a soil probe like a Dutch auger, and the flow chart that's also available in the scheduling guide, which guides you through the process. So using this, you can get a pretty good estimate of the available moisture. So we'll say going in, say we've got 70 at the top, and a little more at the bottom 2 feet. You add that to the measurement grid, and then that gives you your base for what you're starting with at the time of seeding. So yeah, after that, if you want to ground truth your field, you can go out there and take some more measurements and add dates, but really you can get away with just doing the first date. But it will create a more accurate graph if you do ground truth once in a while. And then the next part is the weather data. So first of all, you got to download the weather data. I don't have internet connection here, so I can't download anything, but I should have the 2018 outlook data on here. So like I said before, the only weather data we can access here in Saskatchewan that's practical for us is the outlook station. But what we do when we schedule for fields that are far away from the outlook station is that we use this as a reference, but then we ground truth it by setting up a rain gauge on the dryland corner of that field and one in the center pivot, so you can see exactly how much rain is. Then you can go adjust the numbers to make it more accurate to what that field in the remote area is actually experiencing. So this is going all the way to December. We obviously don't want that. I think it's going to force me to do that though, just because this is the old data, and for some reason they're giving us December and winter months. But anyway, save that. And now I'm just going to go back to this field that I already established. I already made it look like this. So once you have that, you save it, and you can hit this little run model button. It's going to give you an error, probably because I'm not connected to the internet. But then it generates information based off your crop water use, based off that initial soil moisture that we put in, and it also gives a prediction. So I can just show you that. Prediction days we usually run for 7 days, and that just the prediction is based off of historical climate data. So obviously Saskatchewan climates, the weather's always going to be different, so take it with a grain of salt, but it's better than nothing. It's just another tool you can use to give you a guide. Okay, so after that, then you can go into your tables and graphs. So this here is the moisture balance for the entire root zone. And this is what you're going to want to be looking at when to help you base your decision on when to irrigate. So this is going to the end of the year, so you can only probably have to acknowledge up to this point. But as you can see, there's different lines. It's hard to see from where you are, but the green lines show irrigation events. The blue lines show rainfall events. So if you just rely on the outlook weather station for rainfall, that's where it'd be coming from, but you can also put in your own rainfall too if you're getting different rainfall than what we're getting in outlook. Then this line is going to go up and down as the season goes, and this line is dictated by the amount of water that's going into the soil and the amount of water that the crop is using through evapotranspiration, which is crop water use. So, as you can, this is a poor example, because, it was just done, by myself, not based off of a real field, but if you go to an actual field that we, did last year, this was a wheat field, and as you can see, we did a pretty good job of keeping it at making sure that the crop didn't get down to, wilting point. So this line here is gonna be your bottom line, which we set to 50% available moisture. So the goal is to keep that water from getting below that. So once you got into July and August, it was hard to keep the available moisture above that, just because it was a pretty dry August last year, and that's also the time where your crop is using the most water too, through its 3 productive stages. So this kind of just shows you when you should be watering, and once you get close to that line, it's probably about time to go out there and irrigate, especially if you're getting to later in the season when the crop is using 4 or 5 millimeters per day. So yeah, that's pretty much it. You can do lots of other useful things, but that's kind of just the basic of what you can do. If you only want to look at the first half of the maximum root zone, which is based off of the depths you put in. So my root zone is going to be down 3 feet. So this will be looking at the first 1.5 feet, and you can do that as well. But yeah, everything I just went over is pretty much laid out in the irrigation scheduling manual, and it's pretty easy to use if you ignore all the optional inputs. And if you ever need any assistance running a ball like this on your own field, you can talk to myself or another irrigation hydrologist in the office here. Any questions? Well, thank you very much.